My friend had a horrifying experience a few years ago. To this day, he still gets freaked out if you ask him about it. So, it was a rainy summer night. The kind of night where you probably wouldn't go outside unless you really had to. Well, he had to. He wouldn't let a little bad weather keep him from taking his dog for their nightly walk. They would make it a quick walk, because although it wasn't a downpour, the rain was falling steadily enough to be a nuisance. They started walking down the neighbourhood street as they always did. The dog casually stopped here and there, looking for a spot. My friend wouldn't let him stop for long because it was raining and he wanted to make this a quick walk. So he would quickly tug on the leash after, and few seconds and they would move along. Well, they played this game for a few minutes as they made their way down the street and around the corner. It probably wasn't a good idea to go down this street because the street lamp was broken and it was pitch black. But they continued. About 10 steps later, the dog stopped abruptly and started growling. My friend was confused because there was nothing for him to be barking at. No people, no other animals, and no moving cars. Granted, it was dark, but my friend was confident he saw nothing. He figured the dog just spooked himself, so he gave the dog a quick tug to get him moving again. But the dog wouldn't budge, and the growls became louder and more intense. Then, all of a sudden, a figure appeared from the shadows. It was a tall, thin man, wearing a long, dark coat and a wide-brimmed hat that hid his face. My friend was startled because this guy literally came out of nowhere. Then he got scared because he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about this stranger. Not to mention, it was the middle of summer and he had on a long coat. As the man came closer, my friend still couldn't really make out his face, but he could see his eyes. He said they were piercing and cold, like two frozen pools of water. Without warning, the dog lunged at the stranger, barking ferociously. The man stepped back, tripping over a huge rock and falling to the ground. His head slammed onto the pavement, and he let out a moan in pain, so my friend ran over to help him up. But as he reached out and grasped the stranger's hand, he noticed something strange. The man's skin was ice cold to the touch. My friend jumped back in horror. He wondered who this man was with the piercing blue eyes and freezing hands. Was he even human, or something far more sinister? He dropped the stranger's hand, scooped up the dog, and ran as fast as he could back home. To this day, he says he'll never forget those eyes, and he insists that the stranger was not human. The incident happened when I was about 12 years old. My family had just moved into a new house, and I was still getting used to the layout. One day, I had to go down to the basement to grab something. Walking down the creaky stairs, I noticed the light was flickering. I tried to ignore it and continued down the stairs. Once I got to the bottom of the stairs, I heard a strange noise coming from one of the corners of the basement. I couldn't quite make out what the noise was, but it sounded like something was shuffling around. Suddenly, the light went out completely, and I was left in complete darkness. And then I felt a quick but sharp tap on my shoulder. I was so scared that I couldn't move. I was paralyzed with fear. My heart was pounding in my chest, and my hands were shaking. After what felt like an eternity, but was only a minute or two, the light came back on, and I saw nobody. There was nothing in the corner where the noise had been coming from, and nobody was in front of me or behind me. But something did touch me. It wasn't my imagination. Ever since that day, I've been too scared to go into the basement alone. Even as an adult, I still get a little nervous when going down there. Has anything like this ever happened to you? An experience just creepy enough to convince you the paranormal is real and haunt you for the rest of your life? It was in the early evening one Saturday. My parents had left the house to go to the store and left me and my brother home alone. We were so excited to be home alone, even if it was just going to be for an hour or so. We decided to play hide and seek. I covered my eyes while he went to hide. After a few minutes, I went to search for him. While I was walking around, I heard a strange noise coming from one of the rooms in the house. I slowly tiptoed into the room where my brother was standing. He was in the middle of my parents' room, facing the window, his back towards me. I blurted out with excitement, "Found you." And then I went on to tell him that the middle of a room was a stupid place to hide. There was no reaction from him. It was then that I began to sense something was off about him. Not only was he still standing there motionless like a zombie, but he looked weird. His body looked like it wasn't completely solid. I mean, I couldn't see through him, but he wasn't solid. Yes, I know this sounds crazy, and I'm having a hard time describing what I saw, but it was like a translucent veil or cloak was covering him, like he was turning into a ghost or something. Then, all of a sudden, he glitched and vanished right in front of my eyes, leaving me in complete shock. I screamed at the top of my lungs in fear and panic. I couldn't believe what I had seen, but I knew I had seen it. I was confused and terrified all at the same time. I didn't know what to do. I yelled his name in complete terror and kept yelling as I looked all around the room, which was stupid because he didn't go anywhere. He didn't walk into the closet or crawl under the bed, he simply vanished. Just as I was about to give up hope, I heard his voice coming from another room. I ran towards the other room, and when I got there, my brother was standing there, looking completely normal, laughing at me. I was afraid, confused, and angry at the same time. "What happened?" I yelled. "Where did you go?" "How did you do that?" He asked, "What do you mean? How did I do what?" "I've been right here the whole time. I watched you run right past this room and down the hall towards Mom and Dad's room." I stood there looking at him in disbelief. He thought this was all a jokey. "You're terrible at this game," he said while laughing at me. I explained to him what I saw, and he looked at me like I had two heads. Whatever happened that night, he had no memory of it. But I know what I saw. He disappeared right before my eyes. Or something disappeared right before my eyes. To this day, I still have no explanation for what happened that day. That experience remains the scariest moment of my life. At first, it seemed like a good idea. I had always been a skeptic when it came to ghosts, demons, and other supernatural entities, but my friends kept telling me about their own experiences, and I started to wonder if there was something more out there. So, I decided to install security cameras in my home. For the first few weeks, everything was fine. I watched the footage each night and saw nothing out of the ordinary. But then, one night, something strange happened. I woke up to the sound of whispers and footsteps outside my bedroom door. When I checked the footage, there was nothing there. 3 nights later, I was watching TV and felt like someone was watching me. I couldn't even concentrate on the movie because I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Then I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I tried to convince myself that it was just the light flickering, but then it happened again, but on the other side of the room. And then there was no question that something strange was happening. I saw it, clear as day. A figure, barely visible, moving from the family room to the dining room where it disappeared completely. Now, my nights are filled with terror. I'm always on edge in the evenings and I'm always checking the footage for paranormal activity. I'm terrified and obsessed. I regret ever installing those cameras. I never should have opened myself up to the paranormal. I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong because now I'm living in a constant state of fear, wondering what will happen next. If you are curious about this kind of stuff, I suggest you don't chase your curiosity. You might not be able to handle what you find.